Thanks for joining us for this classic black and white program from 1958. My special guest is an incredible performer, a wonderful fella, and a piano's very best friend. Please welcome Big Tiny Little. Hey, Tiny.
How you doing, Mary Lou?
Great to have you back.
Thanks. It's great to be back here.
Now, you actually sang on this show. How did that come about?
Well, it's very interesting because I really didn't like to sing that much, but I was standing there one day, George Cates and Lawrence were standing there talking to Buddy Merrill, and they wanted him to do the cover record for Chuck Berry's School Day, which was a big hit. Buddy says, I don't want to do it, and I'm standing right behind him listening. I says, I'll do it. So I always figured it was my angel pushed me into that mess.
You volunteered.
I volunteered, and we did the record with Jimmy Haskell as the arranger and conductor. We had Piaz Johnson, the Pink Panther, on the sax, and we had the Sportsman's Quartet in the background, and it turned out great. Jimmy Haskell told me afterwards, he said, you know, you would have got this out 2 weeks earlier, you would have given Chuck Berry a run for his money. So I was always happy I didn't do that because singing was not my forte, but I always sang a lot.
Well, I've uncovered some facts about you that I would love to have you comment on. You won the Best Housekeeping Award in military school.
I did. And that was 7th grade, believe it or not. I went to this first military school. And the younger kids that were in 7th grade, we lived at what they call the cottage. And we had a sergeant there that was in charge of us. And so they had an inspection. They come down there, the captain and all of them. Well, I pulled the mattress off my bed. I took a wash rag and washed around each spring. They had coil springs. I washed. They couldn't find any dust. They couldn't find anything. They gave me the award for the whole school for the best housekeeper.
Now, you were in 9th grade with Marlon Brando.
That was the second military school I went to. That was Shattuck Military Pills. It was Faribault, Minnesota, and I went there, and I knew that Marlon Brando was there. I didn't know who he was, but I found out afterwards Marlon Brando was there, and I become friends with Gordio Hormel Meatpacking, and
Sure.
he was a piano player. So he started a trio, and they had me playing bass.
Well, you hitchhiked from Minnesota to Texas.
Yeah. I left home when I was about 16. I got mad one day at my dad, and I took off, and he's yelling at me, and I just walked down the alley and out to the highway and started thumbing it. In snow in York, Nebraska, and I hitchhiked all the way down to Ringgold, Texas, which got burned up last year. You know, there's nothing left of that town anymore.
Oh, my gosh. Now, you mentioned you played the bass. So how did you learn to play string bass? And you also played tuba as well.
Yeah, I played tuba in the high school band, and then I'm fooling around the band room one day, and there's a bass fiddle there, so I picked that up and started playing the first thing you know. One of my early bands was, they hired me to play bass, fiddle, doubling tuba because they played old-time music.
So you were self-taught on those?
Yeah.
Now, did one of your teachers really lock the piano so you couldn't play?
Yes. It was called Hart College at the time. It's now Midwestern University. And the band director really liked me. I played tuba in the band, and I was fooling around with the bass fiddle in the local symphony, and I was studying music, so I'd sit down at the piano and start playing some, you know, wild jazz type stuff. And this real old lady was the head of the music department. She didn't like what I was doing. She locked the piano up, so I went to the auditorium. I heard there was a grand piano in the auditorium. I started going over, sneaking over there and playing the piano. The next thing I knew, there was a canvas over the whole piano. It was padlocked around the bottom. So
they just didn't appreciate
no.
you. I have a note here that says singed eyebrows. Now that sounds like it has to be a good story.
That was on Lawrence on the Welk show. That was Bob Lito at the time was singing the wreck of the old 88, and the department that does all the fancy stuff, they built a piano, and they had hinges. They had hinges on it. So at the end of the number, I'd hit the piano, and certain hammers would come flying out of the piano. The flash would go off, the flash powder, and the top of it would fly open at the end of the record. Well, I was too close to the piano, and the flash powder singed my eyebrows.
Now, after you left the Lawrence Welk show,
Yeah.
what did you do?
Well, I stayed around L.A. for about a year or so. I was learning to talk on a microphone because I never had that chance on the Lawrence show unless he put me on a spot, you know. But I played in the early 60s. They had all the bowling alleys had beautiful showrooms. And I played all these different showrooms. Then I finally got a group together. I went to, 1961, I went to Tahoe to Harrah's, and I played up there with my show band. And 63, I finally went to Vegas at the Riviera for my first Vegas job, and that's what started it all.
Now, when did Dinah Shore discover you?
Well, that was at Harrah's. That was at Tahoe. I was playing in the lounge, and she had heard about me, and she was in the big room, and she walked on the stage as I'm sitting up there and put her hand on my shoulder. She says, "I love your playing. You're going to be on my next show." And that was it. I went on her show, and
This was her television show.
it was a television show, and I showed up, and she wasn't there at the first show. I got there early, and so the music director he said, "Well, play something like Canadian Capers." So I'm playing, and she walked in and says, "What's he playing?" I don't want him to play that. I want him to do those boogie things. I heard him at Tahoe. So she took control real fast, which I'm very happy she did.
Now, was that when you did your skit?
That was another, no, maybe, yeah, I think that was the same
Mr.
show.
Big?
Yeah, she did a scene with George Chakiris from West Side Story. And Keely Smith was her maid, and she walks in carrying this luggage, and she's trying to sing and get a big part in the movies. And I was Mr. Big from Hollywood, and I had a French beret on. That during rehearsal, I picked up a cigar, and I had a cigar in my mouth. I had lit it, and it was lit. And I sat down, and she either sat on my knee or she sat right in front of me. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I accidentally blew the smoke in her face. And I apologized. I said, "Oh, no, that's great. Leave it in." She liked that.
You also were on Ed Sullivan.
I did a couple of Ed Sullivan shows. I did one with Connie Francis and the little puppet that used to be on Papatino, wasn't it?
Topo Gigio.
Oh, yeah, that's it. And I did one with the McGuire sisters. They sang the Muscat Ramp while I played the piano. Then I did another one on Ed Sullivan where piano's a hard thing to sell. The only one I knew that sell it was, besides Joanne Castle, she knew how to sell the piano. And showmanship was, of course, Liberace. He knew how to sell it. So they decided to put about 6 or 8 dancing girls around me. They're laying on top of my piano and kissing me on the cheek. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that show.
Kind of like the Gold Diggers.
Yeah.
But you did work with Dean Martin.
Worked with Dean Martin. I did a show with Dean Martin with Lucille Ball. We rehearsed all week. And she was really a trooper, really great.
Clint Eastwood always thought a lot of you as
Yeah,
well.
it's Clint. I didn't know that he used to come he lived at Tahoe, and he used to come and see me at the different casinos.
You've also been given a great honor for the 2008 Sacramento Jazz Festival.
Yes, they surprised me. This
What's your
last
title?
year, 25 years I've been doing that festival. I'm a very shy person, and they said, "You got to go to the convention center. They want to see you." I said, "Well, I didn't sleep much. I'm going home." "No, you got to go over there. You don't know what it's about." I said, "I have no idea." So I went over to the convention center. Here's all these great musicians that are Harold Alden, guitar player, all these great. So they got me on the stage and put a sash around me. All the people were cheering. There was thousands of people there. They made me the emperor for the 2008 Jazz Festival.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You are the emperor of the piano.
The emperor.
And you can come back and visit us anytime.
I'd love to.
Thank you, Tiny.
Thank you.
And thank you for continuing to visit with us every week right here on public television. Until next time, as Lawrence Welk always said,